Welcome to the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central. I'm coming to you from the beautiful Whitmore Country Club. We had a Folds of Honor golf tournament out here today. Matthew Rocchio, as always, is with me as we talk a lot of sports here on a Tuesday. There you are. How you doing, big boy?
I'm doing fantastic, Randy. How you doing?
Everything's good. A beautiful day for golf out here, and the folks had a great time. So thank you for allowing me to join remotely today. And of course, we thank our friends at DraftKings, where the crown is yours. And a lot coming up on the show, but we're going to start with the Blues, who concerned a lot of people, Matthew, with that 5-0 opening day loss to Minnesota. But they turned things around on the road. A good road trip, as Cam Jansen told us. It's a great opportunity to bond. I thought it was really interesting last night, though, when you look at the kids that are scoring. You still don't have a goal from Jordan Kyrou, but last night it's Snuggerud, it's Jake Neighbors with a pair. The kids are getting the job done early on here for those.
Yeah, absolutely. Neighbors gets the two in the Flames win. Snuggie gets the two last night, and the Neighbors actually tacks one on at the end. Hey, look at that. An empty net win to seal a game. What a novel concept. We love seeing them succeed with the six on the 6v5. So, yeah, the Blues are playing better. You know, they just look a lot cleaner than they did in that night one game against the Wild when things looked a little rough. You know, the defense was getting skated down against, and Binner gave a couple soft goals. They get the big game from Hofer against the Flames, and they bounce back with another win last night. And that last night win I thought was really solid. I thought everyone really but Mailloux had a really good game. Mailloux, again, what is it? Game number 10 for his regular season NHL career. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can improve on, but right out of the gate to make this kind of improvement after how bad that opening night was, pretty good look for the Blues. Oh, we just lost Randy. He's coming right back in studio, though.
Yeah. Chris Kerber made the point that when the Blues played that opener against Minnesota, the group had only played together in one preseason game. And you have to develop a little bit of chemistry, I would think. And I think that was one of the big things about coming into first the Calgary game and then last night. You get the group playing together. It's not easy to just turn it on when you haven't played together for a while. I think that was a big part of the success in Calgary and in Vancouver. And I also think that people are finding their way here. Holloway doesn't have a goal yet either, along with Kyrou. And I think people still, because Snuggerud is relatively new, it was a dollar last year for Jake Neighbors. Kyrou, remember, he got off to a slow start last year and wound up having a very good year. I think with the 25-26 Blues.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I think there's going to be a lot of people who, Randy, they hear you point that out, and you're not going to be the only one who points out the lack of time with these line combos and things like that on in the preseason and how it maybe affected them right out of the gate. When it comes to that, my thing's got to be 82 game schedule. I don't know if we can worry that much about preseason and those kind of things.
Yeah. No, no doubt about it. You don't have enough games, and they're going to have fewer preseason games now. I think it looks a lot like the NFL does, actually. I think that you're going to take a look at kids during the course of the preseason. You're probably pretty confident in what you're going to get out of most of your veterans. So you kind of use the preseason as an evaluation period for the kids. And then once you get into the regular season, maybe even the first 5 or 6 games of the year, those are what become your preseason, especially, Matthew, when I think you get to playing 84 games rather than 82. I think that the early part of the season is going to be rendered pretty meaningless. And when you look at when the Blues won in 2019, heck, the first half of the season was rendered meaningless because they were last place in January. I kind of think that that's probably where hockey is headed. It'll be a lot like the NFL, where we see a lot of sloppy play in the early going.
And to your point about Jordan Kyrou, while he did have a couple big games right out of the gate in the season, he had 2 3-game stretches without a single point in the first 10 games of the season, which was rough for him and was a bad start. So the numbers for him weren't terrible if you looked at it in game 11, but if you were looking at 6 of the 11 games that he played where he hadn't notched a point, and he was -1 in every single one of those games. He was -2 in a bunch of them as well. So you can see there, young player right out of the gate, doesn't have a lot of preseason time, struggles a little bit, but has a pretty good overall season.
Yeah, I think we look at hockey because the hockey players make it look so easy, and we think it is. And it is really hard to find your way at this level. Coaches generally with young players don't have any idea what to expect. I thought it was interesting what Doug Armstrong said during training camp about Suggerud, that he's never had to play this schedule before. He's played weekends in college, and now you get here and you open at home on a Thursday, then you're playing a back-to-back on a Saturday and a Sunday, or I guess it's a 2 and 3 days, a Saturday and a Monday in Calgary and Vancouver. That's something that those guys have never dealt with. That level of travel and that level of closeness between games, and it's only going to get more intense because now you got Chicago tomorrow night, and especially I think with a guy like Suggerud, any college player that walks into this situation is going to be playing a schedule that he's never played before. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying the adjustment probably is more difficult than what we give it credit for being.
Listen, and that's not just, I mean, that's every sport. I think there's a lot of times where we don't give the adjustment and just how insane major league sports are in America. When you, and now college is a little bit different because the way that conferences have been just destroyed as we knew them. Now you do have a case where guys were going to spend 2 or 3 years flying from Seattle to Ohio to Florida to Texas, back to Ohio, across the border. Like now you're going to have some college athletes dealing with that. But I think in every major sport, and even ones like hockey or soccer, where you talk about bringing people from other countries, the idea of being in a league and having to travel 3 or 4 time zones multiple times in 1 week, that is foreign to a lot of non-American professional athletes. And I think I don't think so. I know for a fact that we really overlook how much of a factor that can be in a lot of these things.
Yeah, and I wonder when you talk about all sports, like baseball, is a guy like Liam Doyle, where they only play baseball on weekends in college. Is he going to assimilate quickly to pitching every 5th day? Quinn Matthews assimilated pretty quickly, but then lost it this year. McGreevy had to change. And I think with hockey players, we're going to see the same thing. I do think, and the Athletic ran a piece about Jim Montgomery being the most intriguing Blues guy. When you look at the early switches, when you look at Suggerud moving down to the third line and the way that he has performed with that group, normally I perceive him, let me put it that way, as only a top 6 forward. He has enough of a game. Tell me if you think this. I think he's too skilled to be a 4th line guy. I think he has enough of a game to be a third. He has enough of a 200-foot game that he can be a 3rd line player for you. Not that he should be, because I think he's too talented to be that guy. But if you have a really good top 6 and you want him to play a 200-foot game, I think you can get that out of Jimmy Suggerud.
Yeah, and let's shift the conversation really quick. A quick note here from Jeremy Rutherford on the Twitter today. Sundqvist and Toropchenko remain day-to-day, and they will not play on Wednesday. So a good chance we still maybe see some lineup changes for the Blues. They apparently had a short but very energetic skate today, and you can find more about that coming up in The Athletic with our friend Jeremy Rutherford. But the big thing he pointed out, and we talked about this in the preseason, Randy Karraker, and that was the play of the third line. And you talked about how important that play was going to be, because last year the third line simply was not up to snuff to the rest of the NHL. In last night's game for the new third line of Matthew Joseph, Pius Suter, and Jimmy Snuggerud, they had 11 and a half minutes of 5-on-5 time on ice. They went 20-11 on Corsi, for and against, 11-5 shots, for and against, 11-4 scoring chances, for and against, high danger chances, for and against, 8-2, and they had 1 goal and 0 goals against. That's a third line that they did not really ever see last year. How important could that be for this Blues team?
It's huge. And especially when you have a group, as you mentioned, that can play at the offensive end and the defensive end. They have the quintessential 200-foot game. All of those 3 players have that, and that's going to make a huge difference for this team. As I mentioned before, I thought last year's third line for the Blues generally was a 4th line for a good team. And they've upgraded the skills so dramatically because of the addition of a guy like Snuggerud, and because of the emergence last year of Dylan Holloway, and then the addition of a guy like Suter. They are so much better off with that third line than they were last year. And think about the third line when they won with Patrick Maroon and Robert Thomas and Tyler Bozak. That's what you need to get from your third line if you're going to win a Stanley Cup. And the Blues didn't have close to that last year. I think they do have close to that in 25-26. I really do. I like that group a lot. I like Suggy down on that line. And by the way, I also like Jake Neighbors moving up because I think they're, even though he's young, he's a guy that can lead by example. He goes to the net. And I think some of the players on this team, especially the veteran guys, they need to see that. You know, the coach talks about it all the time. It's one thing for the coach to talk about it, and then another thing altogether for a player to have success doing it. And the fact that Neighbors is going to the net and getting success and getting goals because he's going to the net, hopefully will make an impression on some of those guys that Jim Montgomery was talking about in the first night of the season.
Yeah, I really think it could be crucial because for me, and I know this might be too old school. It might just sound like I'm parroting kind of the 19 Berube stuff, but just I care about the Blues top nine. Like I don't really care necessarily about first line, second line. I just care about the production of the top nine. And so that's why I always vibe with you on they need to make this third line better because it was so bad last year. And I'm completely okay with spreading around the talent. And if Snuggie has the talent that he can play in that first line, but he shows that he's got the grit to maybe give a little bit of third line, and then you combine it with Matthew Joseph, who I know isn't the most skillful skater, but man, he is skating fast this season. Combine that with a Pius Suter, who we know, at least based on what he did last year, when he has his good seasons, it's because he's crashing the net and he's getting into those high danger chances. I have it now up on the screen, courtesy of JR's Twitter. 8 high danger chances for the grouping of Snuggie, Joseph, and Suter. So, I mean, that right there is proof that Suter's continuing what he did last year that got him the big goal number. And when you combine, again, the 200-foot game, maybe not the speed of a Snuggerud, but the whole all-around skill, the ability that you hear guys like Cam and Joey talk about on the broadcast where he can get the shot off from any position. And one of those goals just talks about, it's a pure sniper's goal, that first goal last night. And so he can really give this third line the punch. And then you get the skill and the center, just positioning correct from Pius Suter. Add in just a hellmaker like Matthew Joseph skating like with his hair on fire. I really like what this is for a third line. I like what it does to the rest of the Blues. I'm ready. I'm interested to see how this reverberates across the top 6. But I'm excited and willing to see next on Wednesday, knowing now that because no Toropchenko, we will at least see Joseph in that spot. I'm ready to see what it gives us.
Yeah, and hey, I like Matthew Joseph. I think he's a nice player, but I don't think he's a top 9 guy. And he will add energy, no doubt about it. But I don't. It's kind of like my old flat tire analogy. I don't want to drive on Matthew Joseph too much. I want to have a better tire on my car than him for a long time. You can get by for a couple of days with a spare tire. You drive for a couple of weeks with a spare tire, you're playing with fire. And I think that's where they are when they have a guy like that in the lineup. That's one of the things. I don't know if it's a concern of yours, and I don't think that we should be overly concerned because injuries are going to happen. But this team does not have a tremendous amount of depth at the moment. That could change, obviously, with people like Stenberg and especially Dvorsky. But right now, they need to keep their top 9 guys healthy, and really their top 12, because they don't have anybody to do what Toropchenko does. Alexandrov's a nice player, but he doesn't have the size to do what Toropchenko does. So I think it's really important for the Blues early on, at least, to keep their players healthy until the guys that are down in Springfield are seasoned enough to be able to play and be effective at this level.
Yeah, that's fair. But that's why I'm kind of excited, because the one thing that pops up, this right wing third line issue, they found a player that, to your point, can work for a few games. Once they get Sonny back, you can put Sonny in at the fourth line center. Then you bring Bjugstad up. It changes the composition of the third line a little bit, but I really still think the third line could really work once you make that change, because Bjugstad, Suter, and Snuggie, not a lot of speed on that line, but that's a control the puck, control possession, score goals that way kind of line. And I like how that would work too.
Yeah, and obviously you have the size with Bjugstad. You have the scoring ability with Suter and Snuggie, and a little playmaking ability, but I think you also have a lot of enthusiasm. Pew Suter, and this is another JR thing. I was sitting at the game the other night with Jeremy. He said the people in Vancouver said that Suter was the best defensive forward they had, and it wasn't even close. And then we talked already about the 200-foot game that Suggerud possesses. So you have a little heavy right there with Bugstad. You have the playmaking with the other guys. I think that's an interesting line, and especially if Bugstad can still play at a high level for an extended period. I'm talking about a full season. He's never going to play 20 minutes, but I like that group for 11 or 12 minutes a game.
Let's go to a high repetitions question. How many games do we need to see to get a solid idea of what this team will really be during the season? And I'm going to throw this up, Randy, to help you answer this question. This takes the Blues through the next few weeks of their schedule. They have 4 straight home games starting with Wednesday night's matchup against the Blackhawks, and they face off against the Stars, the Kings, the Mammoth, then they're at the Red Wings, at the Penguins, host the Red Wings, and then host the Canucks. There's a lot. There's a lot of very winnable games for this team that if they are going to be a playoff team, they got to start reaping points early.
Well, you'd like to bank those, but I think that the team is going to get better. I asked a Blues exec on Thursday night for the opener. I said, hey, how good are you guys going to be? And he said, we're better than last year. He said, it might not show itself early in the season, but this is going to be a group that gets better and better and better as the season goes along. A lot of that has to do, obviously, with the coaching, but then also with the youth. I think that Tucker, with where he is right now, has a chance to get even better. I think that when you have a player like Mayu, he's obviously going to get better. He better get better. I think there's more gas left in the tank for Holloway to get a lot better. I think Broberg can get better. Obviously, Suggerud has that ability. Neighbors can be way better than he was last year. So I think if this team ascends during the course of the season, they can be really good at the end. I think there'll probably be some ups and downs, as you mentioned earlier, during the course of the early part of the season. And that schedule, when you're facing teams like the Stars and the Kings and the Mammoth are better, I think that you'll have your hands full in some of those games. Blackhawks are not good. The Red Wings are not good. The Penguins are not good. The Canucks are mediocre. The Blues went in there and beat them 5-2 last night. But I don't think that we're going to see, Matthew, this team be what it's capable of being probably until after the Olympics. I would think that we're talking after March 1st is when they probably really hit their stride.
I think that's fair. It'll be interesting to see, can they put an easy team away like the Blackhawks? How do they show against arguably maybe the best team in the West this year in the Kings? And then can they take care of business? I mean, you gotta, if you're the team you're supposed to be this year, if you're the 95 plus point winning team this season, then you take the majority, you take out the Red Wings, Penguins, Red Wings without much of a sweat. But again, they're getting paid too. They're professional hockey players. They got, Mitch Raymond isn't just going to roll over and let you take 2 games out of 3 from the Red Wings right out of the gate. You did mention the confidence that these players are going to get better. And something that really makes me confident about how much these players are going to get better. Did you see this, Randy Karraker? Dom Lucian said something positive about a St. Louis Blue. And so that tells me, yes, he did. He pointed out Broberg's top comps, and his top comps have names like Brent Seabrook, Mark-Edward Vlasic, Jacob Slavin, Ryan McDonough, Colton Parayko. His top comps have a lot of very good players. And I'm like, well, if Dom Lucian thinks that Broberg's going to have a nice little season, if Dom Lucian's going to say, I think this Blue's going to be good, I think then we just have to agree with him and say, yeah, this guy's going to have an incredible season. Something finally broke through his model that a Blue was going to have a good season.
I would love to agree with that, but I don't think that Dom. I think he's a math expert. I think he's really good at math. I don't know that he is a real hockey guy. I think he likes to put together these math equations and hope that they work. But this is a guy that in 2019 said the Blues wouldn't make the playoffs. And then when they made the playoffs, he said they get knocked out in the first round. When they win the first round, he said they'd lose in the second. When they won in the second, he said they'd lose in the third. And when they won in the third, he said they'd lose in the fourth. And they wound up winning the Stanley Cup. I think that, and there is a place in the world for math. I mean, people have to count back change, don't they? But maybe that's what Dom Lucian should be doing rather than trying to talk hockey with us.
I was trying to point out he said something positive, and you still found a way to trash the guy. Lord Almighty. Well, Randy, there is one place where math can help people. Should we tell people about the one place where math can help them a lot?
Hey, babe, it's DraftKings, and it's coming to Missouri. DraftKings is going to get rocking and rolling on December 1st right here in the state of Missouri. We are going to have legalized sports betting, and all you need to do is use that promo code right there, STL Sports. And when you do, when you make a $5 bet, you'll get $300 in credits from our friends at DraftKings, whatever the sport might be. Maybe it is hockey. Maybe you want to get going on some football. Maybe you want to, and that'll be right down the stretch of the NFL season and getting ready for the college playoffs. It'll be fantastic. And we're right there with you here at STL Sports Central. It's going to be an awesome time. Just use that promo code right there, STL Sports, and you can participate. And the crown is yours with DraftKings. And gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And of course, DraftKings available in Missouri. And you must use the Missouri offer before you get going with DraftKings. The crown is yours.
One last couple takes here from some of the Blues fans in the comments. Ace Rob coming out saying, we have to get more out of Buchnevich. That was the big thing. We talked about JR about that. And really in that first line, first line left winger, he's got to be one of your premier players. And he's been solid, but he has yet to, do what he did in that first season. And that's what we talked about in our preview with JR. Need to see that changes. I mean, it's only 3 games, but I agree with Ace Rob on this one.
He is their most gifted player, Matthew. He's got to be better than he has been. And I don't know what more they can do for the guy. They put him on a top line. They give him a great center. They don't make him play center. They say he's a wing, and that's where he needs to be utilized. I really wonder what is left for the Blues to provide Pavel Buchnevich for him to become that 30-goal. And I think I'm being very conservative in requesting that he be a 30-goal, 75 or 80-point guy. I think he's capable of being a 35 and 90 guy, but it's been a long time since he's shown it. He's absolutely capable of being a point-a-game guy, and I wonder why it hasn't happened for him. Now, he's north of 30. Maybe that's part of it. But he should be, in my opinion, a better player than he has been for the Blues. He had a little stretch last year with Monty after the Four Nations, but I don't think that he's been nearly as good as he's capable of being.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. Listen, there's no doubt about it. And I do kind of wonder, he's got Robert Thomas, so he's got one of the best playmakers in the league, but how much of the line shifts, how much of the lack of that top right winger on the opposite side of him, how much of that has held back his ability to be that dominant player? And again, part of this is you're answering the question, what kind of player is he? Well, does he need other players on his line to take away a heft? But I mean, a lot of top lines in the league have 2 pretty good wingers where defenses can't, focus in on a guy like Pavel Buchnevich. And I just wonder, especially right out of the gate for this season, when there was a rookie on the opposite wing, if teams were able to just plan for ways to eliminate Buchnevich and not have to worry, one, about a Robert Thomas who still maybe thinks too much about passing when shooting lanes are open, and at least for the first game and a half or so, a rookie right winger. And now the Blues have the chance to get a different right winger in there. How does that change things? We'll see.
Well, and here's my thing. When I talk about him being the most gifted player, I don't think other teams should be able to stop him. I think that he has that sort of a skill set where if he wants to take charge of a game, Buchnevich should be able to take charge of a game. And I don't think that he should look at that as a criticism. I think that he should look at that as a compliment, but also know that he needs to give everything he has because there are other really talented players in the league, and he's got to give his best. But if Pavel Buchnevich, in my opinion, has his A game, it's better than 90% of the guys in the league's A games. And I just don't think we see it enough.
Yeah, they got to find a way to unlock it because that'll go in a long way to unlocking the top six that we were just talking about. Blues back in action tomorrow as they face off against a very, very winnable Blackhawks game. They are back home for a 4-game home stretch.
LGB and Thomas.
LGB. There we go. Ridiculous.
So, you like that? Hey,
yeah.
Over the weekend, I guess we shouldn't have been surprised by James Franklin getting whacked by Penn State. They're paying him $49 million to go away. And everything I'm reading, Matthew, is that if they're paying him $49 million to go away, they're prepared to pay his replacement a lot more than $49 million. Now, what was the biggest problem that James Franklin had at Penn State? Win the big one, right? 1-10 against Ohio State. Teams. There you go. So if they're looking for that new coach, I think they need to find a guy that's capable of winning those games. And I made the point a couple of weeks ago that I wouldn't have been surprised if Arkansas, and I still wouldn't be surprised, they have a long way to go in their process. I wouldn't be surprised if they engaged Eli Drinkwitz's representation at Arkansas about their job. Although he might have told them, hey, I'm not doing it, but talk to my offensive coordinator because he's going to be a great head coach. My point, though, Matthew, is that if you're Penn State, you have interest in another guy that so far hasn't shown a propensity to be able to beat top 10 teams. I think that Penn State needs to get a guy that at least has a little bit of a pedigree, if not a lot, like Curt Cignetti. I think they need to find that guy to replace James Franklin. I think Cignetti's a perfect Penn State coach. They need a little bit of swagger. He brings that. He's from there. He's from Pittsburgh. He's coached around there. He knows how to recruit. Clearly knows how to coach in the Big Ten. And I think Indiana, he's turned Indiana into an amazing program. But I don't think that you can ever come up with the resources at Indiana that they have already at Penn State.
That's completely fair. You got a lot of flack on Twitter. I think it was 2 weeks ago when Arkansas job opened up, and you threw out the idea of Eli Drinkwitz. A lot of Mizzou fans pointed out the past history of that one. Arkansas is certainly not the blue blood that, and there's a lot of Florida fans who have not stopped their recruiting of Eli Drinkwitz over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Penn State comes in, and when the actual blue bloods come calling, it's different than Arkansas. That's all I'll say. I still don't think Mizzou fans have to worry very much, but I will acquiesce the point that a Florida, a Penn State, even a Florida State is a different conversation than Arkansas.
Well, number one, all I said was that I thought Arkansas would try to engage and show some interest in Eli Drinkwitz. I never said that he would reciprocate that interest, and I don't think he would. I think that he's very happy at Mizzou relative to that. I don't think that Drinkwitz would be a great fit in Penn State, maybe Florida. But again, if you're Florida, I think that Eli has to do more. It's kind of weird to say this because Billy Napier certainly didn't do an awful lot before he got hired there. But I think that Eli, before he gets that gig, is probably going to have to do a little bit more than he's already done. And by the way, he could do that this year. If he beats Oklahoma, he beats Vandy, he beats A&M, and they finish 11-1, then all of a sudden he's the hottest commodity on the market. But if he's 11-1 at Mizzou, why would Florida be better? Florida's been down. They don't have any patience with coaches. I can't imagine that their resources are significantly better than Mizzou's. He's in the top 10 highest paid coaches in America. If I were Drinkwitz, I would be flattered by the attention, but I don't think I'd be keen on going anywhere really quickly.
No, there's nothing out there that reasonably, in my opinion, would draw him away because he knows he has the NIL support right now. By the hard numbers, we've seen that. Yeah, okay, fine. By hard numbers, you're going to lose out to the oil money. oh, well, that's a fight I wasn't expecting to win in the first place. But beyond that, everything we're seeing is that he's competing because he's flipped Arkansas commits already. He's flipped a UCLA commit already. He's out there, and these are players that are being released to the portal because of the firings for the coaches, and every single team has a shot at him. And Mizzou's winning some of these battles. And that should tell you all you need to know about the legitimacy not only of the program, but of what they're building from the NIL perspective and things like that. And so I don't see why, even if you are so-called blue blood, I'm not seeing why that Mizzou fans are just acquiesce and be like, yeah, it makes sense for Eli Drinkwitz to want to go to Florida. Right now, it makes zero sense for Eli Drinkwitz to leave Mizzou to go to almost any other program, even in the SEC. Certainly, people are throwing out Florida State. It's like,
Agreed.
I don't even know if I want to, like, yes, maybe if they moved the SEC, sure. But at this point, why would Eli Drinkwitz ever even think about even answering Florida State's call?
Right. And we don't know what he likes. One of the things that I thought about, Matthew, is with like Hugh Freeze on the hot seat. He won a championship when he was on that staff with Gene Chizik in 2010 at Auburn. But why would any coach want to go to Auburn now? Because it's 2 years and done, right? You don't get an opportunity to build a program there. And Drinkwitz has been given the opportunity to build a real program at Mizzou, something that is sustainable, something that's not going to cause him to get fired if he has a 6 and 7 year. And I think that he's pretty aware of the schools around the country where if you have that 6 and 7 year, you can have 3 really good years in a row. You can go 9-3, 9-3, 10-2. But if you have a 6 and 7, they'll dump you in a blink. And I think that Eli is aware of that. And I think that he knows that he's got something pretty good here at the University of Missouri.
Yeah, there's not really much else he could complain about. I mean, I guess, the fact that the punter position has completely fell apart. The fact that the kicker injury has left them with a lack of depth. That Bo Pribula has a rough day, and now all they have behind him is a freshman whose redshirt they already burned. There's a couple things in a vacuum, I guess you could complain about if you're Eli Drinkwitz.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and yeah, that's pretty minor stuff actually. If your biggest concern is Bo Pribula's deep ball, that's not bad. But the one thing that you have at a school like Auburn, and I don't know if this means anything anymore or not with NIL and the transfer portal, but the one thing you have there is that you can win a national championship because you have, and you can go into a school and you can say, hey, we had Cam Newton, and he won a national championship here at Auburn. You can win a national championship here. That's something that he can't say at the moment at the University of Missouri. And I know that was a factor back in the day. I don't know if it's a factor at all now, Matthew, because of the fact that players are looking, I think, for the money. And Nick Saban, as much as admitted that when he retired, he said, yeah, all players ask about is how much money they're going to get. And they know that they can win championships at Alabama. But for the majority of the players, it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about how much money they can make. So what you need to do is get those self-starters, those Dick Vermeil self-starters that are willing to compete and want a national championship, even though they know they're getting the big money.
Skywalker 1982, you have access to better athletes at Florida. And here's why that doesn't matter anymore. We talked about this last week. Freshman recruiting class doesn't matter anymore. It's about the portal, baby. Mm-hmm. And so for me, my ability to recruit the best athletes has to do with my ability to go 10-2 this year, and then tell him that I can give you a starting spot as a wide receiver on my team that just went 10-2 last year. That's the selling game. No longer does it matter if the track athlete who runs the 4.340 is in your backyard. Fine, go play for Florida for your freshman and sophomore year. When you guys go 6 and 7, we'll give you a call if you have 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. We'll make something happen there. The access part does not matter as much. Of course, freshman classes, developing players is still going to be a smaller part of the game that's important for winning programs. But no longer is that part of the equation a definitive reason to go to one school from one school to another.
No doubt about it. And if you look at like let's take a look at the University of Miami, which is probably the best team. Can we agree that Miami is the best team in Florida right now?
Yes.
I think we can. Uh, they went to Georgia to get their quarterback.
Hmm.
Uh, they are loaded with. It used to be that they would seal the borders and they would load themselves up with with Florida kids. This is such a national sport now. Ohio State is going down to Florida and getting as good of athletes out of Florida as the University of Florida is. Yes, you have access to better athletes. You get to see them more, but that doesn't mean you get them. Again, it goes back to how much you're going to pay them. I think that we're dealing because things have changed so quickly. We're dealing with outmoded ideas about what recruiting is. That okay, a Florida kid's going to want to stay in Florida and go to Miami or go to Florida or Florida State. The lesser players are absolutely going to want to do that. The star players, they're going where the money is, and I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. I think that whoever pays the most, wherever a kid is from, is going to get that athlete.
Yeah, exactly. That the money moves things now, and while it might sound crazy, thanks to Eli Drinkwitz, and I guess also thanks to certain legislators in Missouri who gave them the front foot a few years ago. Obviously, now more states are going to come along, more things are going to be regulated. The salary cap and things like that are gonna eliminate some of those advantages. But the bottom line is Missouri hit the ground running, got out in front, and now they've built a program that, while I'll have to admit it and get kind of Missouri sad sacky here, it still hasn't reached that level. They still missed their chance to jump the tier that we keep talking about. But look at the recruiting rankings, look at the portal rankings, look at the NIL money. Mizzou's a legitimate top program now, and while they don't have the history of the other ones, reality right now is reality.
Yeah. Right. It has changed. By the way, Matthew, when we thought at the beginning of the season that Florida would be better than they are, why did we think that the Gators would be better? Who was ascending that we thought was going to make Florida a really good football team?
I mean, undoubtedly, people thought DJ Lagway was going to have a much better season than he's having.
And he's from Texas. The Florida quarterback is from Texas. Right? That tells us all we need to know right there, doesn't it? That we thought that they were going to be good because of DJ Lagway, and they didn't even get their quarterback from the state of Florida. So that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Arch Manning is from New Orleans, and he's playing for the University of Texas. Carson Beck is Georgia, and he's playing for Miami. So that it'd be nice for those schools to be able to seal the borders. They aren't sealing the borders anymore because people are coming in with money.
Let's get your thoughts from the Alabama Mizzou game, because we haven't got to react to it yet with you, Randy. Just a couple of big things. Yep. Obviously, the big storyline right now is the lack of running the ball in the second half. You have the fake punt. You have the onside kick. You have the lack of Prebula, hitting the passes that he'd been hitting in the first 5 weeks. What was your big takeaway from the Missouri loss on Saturday?
There were a couple of things, and you mentioned last Prebula. And when we talked to Bernie last Friday, he talked about the lack of deep balls by Mizzou in the first 5 games of the season. Now we know why, because Prebula's deep ball is not great. And they tried to utilize it against Alabama, and they just weren't able to connect on the deep ball. I agree 100% with those that feel the way they do about the running game in general. The best way for Mizzou to win that game was to try to get the upper hand with their offensive line against Alabama's defensive front seven. And I don't think Mizzou ever really consistently tried to do that. There were times in the game where they tried to, but I don't think they ever consistently did. And I think that Mizzou ran less than 50 plays in the game. It was almost 2-1 in terms of time of possession. So in addition to the fact that Mizzou wasn't running the ball particularly well, Alabama, which wasn't a running team, was able to hang on to the football. Mizzou's defense couldn't get off the field. And then once you get into the fourth quarter, I had no trouble with the fake punt call. I thought throughout the game, whether it was on offense or on that particular play on special teams, I thought they went to the short side of the field a lot. I don't know why that was, and it doesn't seem like they did that a lot. Remember last year when the offense really got cooking, and this was with Brady Cook, but they stretched the field a lot. It seemed like they used the entire field a lot. And it didn't seem to me like in this game, they used as much of the field as they had last year. And they really hadn't played anybody this year. They've been able to run the ball a lot. And I was disappointed by that. And especially on a call like that, which obviously Alabama thought was coming. But I would like to give your runner a little bit more opportunity to make a play and not be so near the sideline.
Yeah, listen, I've talked about it a lot already, but the play calling thing for me is, I think I understand people's issues, and I have more issues than Gabe DeArmond on Power Mizzou did a really good breakdown of why he doesn't think there was really any issue with the play calling. I have a slightly different mind than him. I think there's a couple of those first downs where I'm okay with forcing the run, even though when we look at the yardage counters, Ahmad Hardy had more yards after contact than he had total yards. This obviously means he's taking off a lot of contact at and sometimes behind the line of scrimmage. But for me, I think we've seen too many times, Randy, in the last 10 years, and maybe more so in the NFL. Maybe this is just me having too much of an NFL mindset of the difference between running a play action pass on 2nd and 8 than just throwing the ball regular on 2nd and 10. I know it sounds such like a stupid, arbitrary little thing to bitch about, but I do truly think that the difference between just those two situations are monumental at times in football. And those were, that was the difference between what Mizzou was facing in a lot of those situations. I'm not saying they would have gotten 4 or 5 yards with Ahmad Hardy or Jamal Roberts, but just getting 2nd and 8. And now the defense is thinking, well, if they go play action, I might have to react to the handoff. If they go RPO, I might have to react to the action with the quarterback and the running back. That's my entire thought process. So I see where Gabe's coming from in the lack of success and things like that. But to me, more so, not just from a math perspective and just from a game energy perspective or momentum perspective, the idea that you have to run successfully to set up the pass or run successfully to spread out defenses has been proven partially wrong over the last 10 years of NFL football. It's just been proven that if you run the ball, if you just hand the ball off, teams will react to it in the RPO in the play action game. That's my thought process on the play calling.
That's because you watch The Greatest Show on Turf and you understand how great offense works. And when you set up, you win the game in the first half with the pass, and then you run it in the second half. That's how Marshall Faulk ran for 1,387 yards every year. He wasn't getting his yards in the first half. He was getting yards in the second half after the Rams had built a lead. And that was one of the things that I thought that, especially in the second half, that Mizzou could have done when the game was still close. When the other team is running 72 plays and you're only running 50, 3 to 21-27. Mizzou just wasn't able to do it, and I was really surprised that they weren't able to do it against the Alabama defense, and they weren't able to just establish the running game. And I don't think they needed to establish a running game to set up the pass. I think they needed to establish a running game to win the game, because that's the best way for Mizzou to pick up yards and points, in my opinion, is to run the ball with Hardy.
And another thing we talked about a lot when we talk about the Tigers is the short passing game. And that was really just not up to snuff. For me, the big moment in the game, and looking back on it now, it's still to me a huge moment in the game, is it was sometime in the first half. I forgot it was the first or second quarter, but Perbula bootlegs out to the right and he forces the ball to Norfleet in the second level into 3 Alabama defenders. The ball is picked off, but then the Alabama defender drops it. Or it wasn't Norfleet. Sorry. I think it might have been Coleman, because the thing that jumps out is that Norfleet's wide open on the underneath route on that little bootleg, and the fact that he probably just ignored Norfleet, because I feel like the progressions should be probably shallow to deep. So he just looks Norfleet off for like a 7-yard gain and forces it into a 15-yard almost interception. As soon as that decision was made, I really felt like you can kind of frame the rest of the game in that decision, and that Pribula wasn't getting through his progressions. He was missing his underneath looks a lot. And so a lot of the games against Kansas and South Carolina, a lot of the big benefits they made in the passing game wasn't the deep shot, although they did hit those. It was that if they got 4 yards on first down, they would get 6 yards on second down by just dumping it off to Coleman for a quick pass. And so they always kept the offense churning. There was no rhythm to the offense at all, especially in the second half.
And I think against teams that have physically gifted defenses, I think the field will be condensed now, because I think people know that they can. They don't really have to defend the deep ball against Mizzou. So you defend the intermediary route, and then the short, and then the running game. I think that Alabama showed that you can take the deep ball away, even though they have Marquise Johnson, even though they have some really good receivers. And by the freshman in the last couple of minutes was terrific. What's his last name? It's not Ofonle, but whatever. It starts with an O. He's great. But I think that at the moment, if you are A&M or if you're Oklahoma or if you're Vanderbilt, right now you can condense the field and say, okay, Pribula is going to have to beat me deep before I respect it. I think that's probably what defenses are going to do against Missouri for the foreseeable future, until they prove that they can throw the ball deep.
Yeah, I made a comment the other day that we might have seen the one big deep shot that Pribula hits this season on that one, that like the very first pass of his Mizzou career to Speedy Johnson in the first game. I hope I'm wrong. Randy, you're hanging out at a country club today. You might be able to see our next subject on the show also hanging out at a country club someday soon, because Mike Shildt yesterday surprised some people. Some people would say that they saw this in the tea leaves, but Mike Shildt announces his retirement from the Padres yesterday. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I was stunned. And Bob Nightingale had a piece at USA Today talking about how there was friction apparently during the season between Shildt and AJ Preller, and Shildt did have a tendency to wear on the staff in San Diego, which is exactly what happened here. And maybe Shildt read the room and said, you know what, this is going to end badly if I don't leave now. And there might have been some mutual agreement there based upon what we're reading and what we're hearing about the situation. I was stunned.
Yeah.
I really thought that Shildt did a great job there. Heck, you win 90 games in back-to-back years. And I wonder, Matthew, here's my thing with Shildt. I think that he was so heartbroken. Job. He spent years and years and years striving for the Cardinal job. He gets it, and then he gets fired. I wonder if he's ever really recovered mentally and emotionally from that. He said that the toll of a season takes a mental and emotional and physical toll on him. And I wonder if it would be different if he were the Cardinal manager rather than the Padres manager. I just have the sense that part of his retirement at the age of 57 has to do with him doing a job that he really doesn't love. And I think, I don't know if it's secondary, but I think in addition to, clearly he's a guy that wears on some people, because you don't just leave a job like that. I guess you can have the self-awareness to walk away from a job that is taxing you mentally, emotionally, and physically. That was because he didn't have an ownership that he liked. But I just wonder if there's more to this than Shildt having the toll taken on him that he said was taking a toll on him.
Well, he vehemently denies it. And an interesting piece of reading, if you have The Athletic, and you should have The Athletic, why don't you? Dennis Lin is the Padres writer for The Athletic, and his story, really, truly fascinating. Shildt says that I'm just tired and want to go home, dude. I'm super at peace with all of this. He talks about how He's been losing his hair. He's been gaining weight. What are some of the other things he? Let me see here.
So should I retire then?
Poor sleep, chest pains, hair loss, and even in the age of pervasive sports gambling, death threats from strangers.
Okay.
The general manager still.
I don't get the death threats yet from.
That's why we don't give out picks anymore. I don't want this was also from Shildt in that Dennis Lynn article on The Athletic. I don't want people to think I checked out or wasn't engaged or wasn't doing my job. No, that's not the case. I tell myself, and I've done it every day since day one of the job, regardless of the level. I'm going bell to bell. I'm going to give it everything I got because I owe it to the teams and the players. So I did that. I also think it's interesting, according to the reporting from Dennis Lynn, Mike Shildt is going to be paid through the end of the month as per the terms of his 3-year contract extension he received last offseason. That, Shildt said, would be the extent of what he would receive. So he's going to walk away from this, and he's not going to hold out or try to get any extra money on his contract. He's going to take his payment through the end of the month, and then Padres are off the hook.
That is just truly amazing to me, because I know how much Mike Shildt loves the game, how much he reveres the in an organization, even though they might not always like him. I think he does care about them. And for him to walk away is really telling to me that there's some of that, and maybe the death threats are a bigger part than he said it at the end. Maybe that's a bigger part than we give it credit for. And he's a thoughtful guy, and I wonder what he'll do now. I wonder if he'll go back and help out in somebody's minor league system because he's really good at that. And the Cardinals, by the way, would do well to have him in their organization now that Mozeliak is gone. And if you give him a job where he doesn't have to oversee, he doesn't have to be a boss, he can just be a worker bee, I think that he'd be a really good guy to have in an organization.
Yeah, I mean, we know the guy when it comes to young players, teaching them the fundamentals of baseball. We know that Mike Shilt's a good coach. There's no doubt about that. It's just when he's the head honcho of an organization, clearly things don't always go as things are. The machine's not as well oiled as it can be behind the scenes.
Right. So, by the way, Matthew, so his first year with the Cardinals, he finished 41-28. I think it might have been the best record in the league after he took over for Mike Matheny. In his second year, he was in the postseason, full year. Third year, he's in the postseason. And fourth year, he's in the postseason. And then both years with San Diego. The guy has managed 5 full major league seasons and has been in the playoffs every single one of those major league seasons. That's pretty good. And I wonder if maybe if he steps back for a couple of years and gets any mental health issues that he has under control, I wonder if he would have any desire to come back. And now, with the apparent revelation that he was having difficulty with their front office, I wonder if he's a guy that any other front office will roll the dice with anymore. Once you go through Mo and AJ Preller and there are reports of friction, everybody else is going to take notice of that. So what somebody in the front office would have to weigh is their ability to get along with him versus, and the possible negative consequences that could come from that, versus making the playoffs. 5 out of 5 in 5 full seasons. That's pretty darn good.
Absolutely. And Samuel House says, sit out 2026. The lockout happens in 2027. 28, you're a new man, refreshed and ready to go. Or not.
Yeah, I would guess. If I'm not mistaken, somebody told me that he got divorced too. Remember his last year or two here in St. Louis, he got married and then he got divorced. So he's got a lot going on, obviously. But I would think that we'll get to spring training and he'll get into the season. He's a baseball junkie. I think he's going to have a real difficult time staying away from the sport. Now, that doesn't mean that he'll be a major league manager again, but I have to believe that somewhere in baseball, whether it's working with a college team or whether it's working with Yeah, a minor league system somewhere. I have to believe that somewhere Mike Shildt is going to be involved in baseball again in his lifetime.
And currently being played on the Diamonds. He missed 3.5 months after going down with an injury in early April. Then he came back in August. Blake Snell has given the Dodgers 11 starts with 2.52 ERA in the regular season, and his 3 starts in the postseason, they are 3-0, and he has gone 7, 6, and 8 innings. What an incredible last 2+ months for Blake Snell and the Dodgers.
I think that the Dodgers are playing games. I think they're putting a guy who isn't hurt on the IL so that he is preserved for the postseason. They know they're going to make the postseason. They know how awesome he is. He's great when he's healthy. But if he pitches, there's a chance that he'll get hurt. If he doesn't pitch, then he's probably not going to get hurt. So rather than get the guy for 30 starts, get him for 8 starts and then get him for postseason starts as well. He's as good as anybody, man. That was one of the all-time historic performances against the Brewers last night, and I think the Dodgers probably know that he would not have been there if they had tried to pitch him in April, May, June, July, August, and September. So just pitch him a little bit in April and May, pitch him in September, and then have him healthy, have him refreshed for October. I think that's the way the Dodgers are rolling. I think they took their time with Ohtani. Obviously, when you look at Sasaki, who's their nominal closer right now, he barely pitched in his rookie year. They let Yamamoto go, but it seems like the Dodgers have a lot of guys that miss a lot of time and then mysteriously show up and are uber successful during the postseason. And I think Blake Snell is the leader of that group.
Randy, before this season, Blake Snell had pitched in 9 major league seasons, and he had pitched over 30 games in 2 of those seasons. You questioning his stamina is completely legitimate. And honestly, I mean, he's 2 times in his career. He started 31 and 32 games. Every other season has been in the 20s. He's got 2 that are in the 19s. He's got 11 in 2020. Obviously, that was the COVID shortened season for everybody. But the only 2 times he's actually pitched more than 30 games in a season, he's won a Cy Young both times. But to your point, we all know he's not consistent. His health isn't consistent. Yeah, they've duped us all. Oh, well.
Yeah, well, and if you're the Dodgers, and by the way, I'm convinced they do this with Tyler Glasnow too. He's got the same kind of track record. But if you're the Dodgers and you can get away with it, then why not?
Because it's cheating, Randy.
But is it? I mean, all you're doing is putting a guy on the IL and he's not hurt. This is a franchise. They had a little lefty. I think might have been Ted Lilly. I'm not sure, but they had him on the IL, and his injury was working on velocity. So you can always find an injury, and I think that's exactly what they're doing.
Do you retroactively take anything away from the Elway Broncos Super Bowls, knowing that they were breaking all those cap rules?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And you know what? It was John Elway. He's a former player. He probably didn't even know all the cap rules. He was just trying to take care of his boys. So no, I don't worry about it. Somebody, even the Patriots, like there was a memo that went out right before Spygate, so that's a little bit different. But I think that when Denver did it, it was probably more a mistake than anything else. A bookkeeping mistake, Matthew.
Oh yeah, a bookkeeping mistake. Those happen all the time at billion-dollar companies on accident, purely accident.
Yeah, I wish somebody would make one in my favor.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Madoff had his son there making lots of bookkeeping accidents.
Yeah, there you go.
All it was bookkeeping accidents, Randy.
Yeah. So, and by the way, Dodgers dominated, but I hope that the Cardinals are taking a look at what Seattle is doing. And I'm amazed, by the way, that they're ahead in their series 2-0. But I think that's a really nice model for the Cardinals. Get your superstar like Rodriguez, sign him to an extension. Raleigh is going to get the extension too. When they needed to fill in with Suarez and Naylor, They did that. They go out and get a bargain guy in Polanco. He's doing a great job. They've kept J.P. Crawford around. He's done a great job. And they already have the guy that has developed all of this great pitching for Seattle. And so you take advantage of that. I really like the way Seattle has built their team, and I think it's a good model for franchises like the Cardinals to emulate.
All right, Randy, Rays, Guardians, or Mariners or Brewers. You got to choose one of these models for the Cardinals to copy. Who is it?
Rays, Mariners, Brewers, and who is my fourth?
Guardians, who you talked about last week about their ability to build.
Yeah. Well, the Rays have been to a couple of Guardians have been to one World Series. Brewers have not, so I'm not going to go with the Brewers, even though times have changed. I don't have enough confidence in that. So Rays, Guardians, Brewers, or Seattle. I think I'm going to go with Seattle. I think I'll go with the Mariners because of their wealth of pitching. We haven't even seen Brian Wu during the postseason yet. He's great. How does Bryce Miller give you 6 scoreless innings in an LCS game? So I think I would. And then if you can develop a guy like Raleigh, develop a guy like Rodriguez, and then find talent like Polanco. They've just got a lot of really good elements. And Jerry DiPoto just never stops trading. He tries to get them better and better and better. Doesn't always work out, but I think it's fun for us as observers because there are so many trades that franchise makes, and we all like trades. So yeah, I think I'd go with Seattle, even though they haven't been to or won a World Series.
I know some of the listeners are
you?
going to hate this, but I'll throw it. I think I like Seattle a lot. And one thing I'll throw out that you always love to talk about, Randy Karraker, Cal Raleigh, talking about they have to develop a superstar. Do you know how many major league home runs Cal Raleigh had hit by 23 years old? I couldn't tell if you froze or just didn't have an answer. Sorry.
I froze there. I'm sorry. What? I'm very cold.
Cal Raleigh had 0 home runs at 23 years old in Major League Baseball. So I know a lot of people hate us keep making that point, but still some hope to maybe develop a superstar in the same vein.
Hey, same with Aaron Judge, right? Some guys develop. A lot of guys. Everybody develops at a different rate. Yeah. So I think you have to be patient with your guys, and if you see talent and you're good talent evaluators, you got to give that guy the benefit of the doubt so he doesn't go away and become what JD Martinez became when Houston released him, or what David Ortiz became when Minnesota released him. You don't want to have those stories happening to you.
Yeah, on the flip side, I will say 25-year-old Cal Raleigh did hit 27 home runs and followed that up as a 26-year-old by hitting 30 home runs. So maybe when another player we talk about giving them some more time because they're youth, we'll use this example as maybe not a good one.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just need to be patient. I know people hate that, but especially when you aren't planning on winning and your whole deal is set up to build through draft and develop. Well, developing takes time. When you develop anything, when you're developing a business, it doesn't generally happen overnight. You got to give it some time to marinate, and that's what the Mariners did. So that's one of the reasons I like them. I think they're a fun organization.
Let's hope they can keep on winning. Let's hope the Brewers can make a comeback. That way, we're guaranteeing finally a new World Series champion in Major League Baseball. And honestly, even if it's the Dodgers, just give me a new champion on the West Coast if it is the Mariners. I'm all about the Mariners.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. Hey, this has been fun. Thanks for going through the trouble of freezing a little bit. Because I will be back in studio tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And there's always something to talk about. And we'll have a little bit more football to talk about tomorrow, too.